today's episode of Chef Talk. I'm your host, Daniela Smallwood, and I am so excited to be back with you again for another month. This month is important. Why? Because it is a wellness month at Thompson Hospitality, and we are going to be hosting a wellness fest. You may be watching this from the wellness fest actually today, or you may be listening to our podcast or viewing this on our podcast on YouTube. So wherever you're watching or listening from, we are so glad to talk to you today. Today, we're really going to be focusing on the art of self-care and really having a conversation. We have a special guest who's going to kick off our conversation. Her name is April Martin. She is a registered nurse at Lincoln University. And so I want her to welcome her to the stage so she can introduce herself and let us know a little bit about her background. So April, welcome. We're so glad to have you today.
Well, thank you so much. I'm very glad to be here.
Excellent. So if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about what it is that you do at Lincoln University and how you kind of gotten into this role.
Well, I'll tell you, I am very glad to be a part of Lincoln University's Health Services Department. I've only been here since July 12th, and I am nearing the time in my career that my goals and objectives are different. And so right now I'm at the stage in my life where I want to make impact on young people, the kind of impact that they'll be able to carry throughout their lives to help improve their lives. I've had many different careers. I started out in my college career as a business student. I worked for Mobil Oil for 10 years in stock accounting, went on to nursing school. I was the director of a subacute unit in a skilled facility. I was a nursing home administrator for a while. For the last 18 years, I was in home infusion, coordinating the transition from patients in hospital to home care with specialized infusion. And after that, because of the pandemic, job titles and things change. And I just began to look at my career differently. And like I said, I was so glad to be a part of this institution. And I'm settling in just fine.
Awesome. Well, I am sure Lincoln University is happy to have you. Thompson Hospitality and all of the HBCUs and campuses we serve are so excited that you would take the time to pour into us and really have this conversation today. As we developed our Wellness Fest, it was really important for us to create moments in campus dining and across our campuses where students could really focus in on their wellness and having that well-rounded point of being for themselves. Our theme for the academic year is living the Luxe life, and so we're focusing on having a life of luxury, not necessarily of a whole bunch of money, but understanding that our health is wealth, from mental health to emotional health to physical health and wellness. And so we wanted to have this wellness fest and this time to really settle in and understand what it means to take care of yourself. And so
Yes.
the term self-care, it's kind of become a buzzword, and you hear a lot of people talking about, oh, self-care. And so just to kind of set a foundation, do you mind explaining to us what self-care really is, and is that really what we should be focusing on?
Well, when I think about self-care, I think of it under the umbrella of self-love. So many times we don't really understand our worth and our value. And it's hard to love ourselves, hard to accept ourselves, but we need to become more in a state of appreciation of who we are. We can appreciate and care for so many other things, so many of other people, but when it comes to ourselves, sometimes we put ourselves on the back burner. And so we have to come to love ourselves. And that's not being selfish. That's not being, matter of fact, it's a responsibility really to love ourselves. We cannot pour out into other people. We can't build other people up if we're in a low state, if we don't think highly of ourselves as well. So when I look at self-care, I look at it as an action that we have to take. It's an expression of our self-love. It's an action that we have to take in order to really elevate ourselves. And that's several areas. Self-care is about taking care of ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, environmentally. It's a lot of different levels.
I love that you've talked about it from such a holistic point of view. And
Hmm.
one of the key things, there are three things that stood out to me, but the first thing that stood out to me is that we have a responsibility to ourselves to learn how to love ourselves. So that person that is out there, I mean, listening to your background and your skills, you've always had jobs where you were serving other people and caring for other people. So as a young person, or even a person who's returning to school who may be watching and they're saying, I hear you and I hear what you're saying, but how do I get to that place of really loving myself? What are some things that you did to create time to love on yourself while you were taking care of so many other people?
Well, let me also just throw in there that I'm a pastor as well. I forgot to mention that. So this is an area that I'm very much concerned about. I think, you know, when it comes to talking about self-love, we have to be concerned about our happiness, our well-being. We have to, like I was saying earlier, we have to understand our worth, where we come from. I think lots of times we forget that we come from a people uh, of doctors and lawyers and scientists and discoverers and explorers. We come from greatness, and we need to look and on ourselves as people of greatness. You know, there is nobody like us, like each of us individually. And we need to look at ourselves. I need the students to look at themselves like there's nobody else like you. God broke the mold when he made you. And there is a purpose for your life that only you can fill. There's greatness in you, and you've got to love yourself, position yourself so that you can walk in the greatness for which you've been created.
I absolutely love that. There's a saying that says you can't pour from an empty cup. And
All right.
I think that if we really got to a place where we would embrace that from a younger age, I think that's a lesson I learned as I got older. And so, for those who are watching that are a lot younger, being able to master that, keeping your cup full on a regular basis and how important that is, I think that, it puts you further ahead. You also talked about finding your purpose. And so, how does finding your purpose correlate with, your self-love journey?
I think, you have to be still. One of the things, this world is very busy. It is so busy. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise. And so, really, we have to learn to take time for ourselves. We have to take time to focus on our own strengths, not only what it is that we like to do, but what is it that we do well. We need to go ahead and pour into the natural gifts and graces that we already have. And in that, you will discover that this is my gift. This is what I do well, and I'm passionate about it. Between having a passion and being able to do something, success is right around the corner. But it takes time to discover that about yourself. It takes being open to learn different things, to not to be afraid to go beyond the norm, and to discover. There's so much to discover.
That discovery point is such a good, it's a good perspective too, right? I think sometimes we're so busy going to the next level that we forget to stop and discover ourselves and discover our gifts and discover what is important to us. And so some of those barriers in that place of discovery is some of the misconceptions that are out when it comes to self-care or self-love, what can you say to the person who struggles with where's the line between self-care or self-love and selfishness or vanity and being kind of self-consumed? How do you find the balance between the two?
Because in acting out your self-love, and providing yourself with self-care, taking care of your physical needs, financial, social, emotional, it does not hurt you. It does not hurt you, and it does not hurt others around you. When you start getting into things like narcissism and being selfish, there's a hurt along that pathway, right? But when you're involved in self-love and self-care, not only can you flourish as a person, but it changes the environment around you, and it elevates not only you, but it elevates the people that are with you, your family. It elevates your friends, because I'm gonna tell you, when you position yourself like that, that you love yourself enough to take care of yourself, and your thoughts are on a high level, people who don't mean you no good, they can't be around you. They can't take that. And a lot of times you have to also, because self-care can be tough, because you have to begin to understand, is what's pouring into me and what's taken away from me. You want to be around people, and I want to bring this to people because we're talking about a college campus. So we're talking about peer pressure. We're talking about meeting new people that you may never, coming from a lot of different backgrounds, right? We need to be able to align ourselves with people that are going where we're going. Better yet, people that are already there, that can take us with them. You want to be around people and align yourself with folks that are moving in the same direction.
That's excellent. So for those of you guys who are listening and taking notes, really think about some of the things that Ms. Martin has said today. Number one, making sure that you understand it's your responsibility to have control over your self-love and self-care regimen and journey, and understanding that it's a journey. And then I love that intake that you talked about, of just doing an intake of who's around you, but not just who's around you, who is pouring into you and who are you pouring into. And I think that's a great way to kind of start. And so when we talk about self-care, because you said some things I really love. So the responsibility really stuck with me. And I think for those of you guys who are watching or listening, really write that down. That's a moment you should write down. Self-love is my responsibility. Care is my responsibility. I have a responsibility to myself to make sure that my cup is full so that I can be everything that I was created to be, so I can do everything that I'm doing. Because you make an investment to go to college, and you don't want that investment to be null and void because you're not taking care of yourself down the road. But you also talked about self-care and self-love being an action. And
Yeah.
it's an action. So there's things that we have to do to be able to manage that journey. And so to get started on that, what are a few simple ways that people can implement self-love and self-care into their daily routines?
Well, let's start with waking up in the morning and being thankful that you are. That's the first thing, being thankful that you did wake up in the morning. But physically, we need to learn to start out with a stretch. Start out with a stretch. Because life is in the blood. And so what we want to do is we want to stretch every morning when we put our feet down on the floor, stand up and stretch tall, stretch wide, stretch deep, get the blood flowing in our body. It is a great way to start the day, I'll tell you. And just, you haven't moved, you haven't taken not one step, but already you begin to feel life. You begin to feel renewed. And it's a way of really opening up your mind and your body for the day's journey. So just starting out by stretching is a great way to start your physical journey in the morning. I believe, I'm sorry, yeah. And two, taking some time to get up in the morning a little earlier and taking a minute to breathe. I call it a pregnant pause. Take a pregnant pause, just a deep breath, just before you start your day. So many times we start our day all hyped up in a rush, and then it doesn't stop until we pass out at night. But you have more control when you get yourself centered. Some people call it being centered, then get a better focus on what it is that your day looks like, what it is that you want to accomplish, making realistic goals for your day. I mean, those are just some of the things that you can do first thing in the morning when you get up to start your self-care day even.
I love that. I think that how we start is really sets the tone. So
Mm-hmm.
I think you hit a very key point. And one of the things that, like we said when we started our show, is at Thompson Hospitality for our campus dining program this year, our focus was called the Luxe Life. And so when we think about the word Luxe Life, we always think about like luxury, fancy, things that are expensive. But it's really about finding the heart of who we are and focusing on those small attention to detail. And our promise to our guests and our campus community is that we want to make sure that each and every one of our guests know that you're worth going the extra mile. But that also works
Yes.
for us as individuals, right? Like we have to know we're worth going that other, that extra mile. And so, what are some ways that people can go about cultivating the best possible relationship with themselves and with them or with those that are around them?
I think the best way that you can cultivate a relationship with yourself is to begin to know you. Begin to know what it is you like to do and not feel bad about it. What is it that makes you happy? What is it that gives you strength? What is it that brings a smile to your face? As well as what is it that you can do to make yourself strong? Strong physically and mentally. It's about creating an environment and a space for yourself, that you can stand tall and you can rise tall. I think, so many times when you look at a person, you can tell how a person feels about themselves by the way they walk. Their shoulders are slumped, and it's about rising up to the new day and the new day's challenge, and that emanates when you have that kind of self-love, and you've done things, you've had actions for self-care. When you walk into a room, it's noticeable. It really is noticeable, and people want to know. It draws. People want to know, well, what's different about him? There's something different about her. Why is it that they're better able to handle this stress of the tests or the finals coming up? How is it that they are eating well? They haven't gained the college 15 yet. But it's about exploring that for yourself.
I love that season of exploration. And for those who may have been on their journey and they're saying, okay, I do okay a little while, Nurse Martin, and then I kind of fall off. And then I do a little okay for a little while, and then I fall off. Consistency is definitely that key.
Yes.
How can students or how can our viewers really remain positive for the long haul? Like, what are some things they can do to kind of, keep those practices on the long haul?
Well, you can learn to forgive yourself for one. You will have them days where you slip up. Instead of that salad that you normally have on Wednesdays, went down there and ate that fried chicken, and not only one piece, but you done dipped down to 3 pieces, right? But we can learn to forgive ourselves, right? And live intentionally. Do what we do on purpose with a goal in mind. It doesn't have to be these grandiose goals, because that can set us up for failure. But one day at a time, what's the goal for the day? Or 1 week at a time, what's the goal for the week? But to be intentional, learn to forgive ourselves, right? Set boundaries and protect ourselves. We have to guard our self-love, guard our self-care, because there's so many other things and people that will pull us away from that. But that's sacred time, that's special just for you, and you deserve it.
That's good. You deserve it. You heard her. You deserve it. And I love that you talked about boundaries too, because there's a book called Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud. And I think there's like different editions of it that are out now. I think they have it for like young people, they have it for singles, they have it for individuals. But it's a really good book that kind of talks about how to manage those boundaries and some of the challenges that people face when they have boundaries. So, how important are boundaries when it comes to your self love and self-care journey?
They're very important. They're very important. But like I said, sometimes we do step outside the line for ourselves. Learn to forgive yourselves and get back in. We have to understand ourselves so that we know what will take us down the wrong path. You know, I can eat a piece of sweet potato pie. Yes, I can. But I know that I cannot have a whole pie in my house. Because I will slip and this little piece, and before I know it, it's all gone. I've learned that about myself. I know the boundaries and I stick with it, and thank goodness I don't have a whole pie in my freezer because it wouldn't last long. But that's a part of knowing ourselves, and in knowing ourselves, we need to take time. Our students have come from home. They've been in their parents' household under their parents' rules. And now they're at the age now where they're trying to find out who they are as young adults in this process these next 4 years. And so that's very critical that you understand what your likes are, what's good for you, and go after it.
Excellent. Well, for those of you guys who have watched part one of our Wellness Fest, we want to thank Nurse Martin for coming and just having this conversation with us on today. I think that some of the key critical things that I heard was one, it is our responsibility to take control of our self love and self care journey. But also, more than that, is the other thing I heard was grace and how important it is to grant yourself grace and forgive yourself on the journey. It's not supposed to be perfection, but it is supposed to be just going after that place of excellence and doing your best. And so, as we wrap up our session, I would just like to give you a few moments to just share your last final thoughts. What is it that you want to just impress upon the hearts of those who are listening and watching on today?
Well, what I want to tell these students is you are worth every good thing that there is in store for you. Put yourself in a position to receive it. Put yourself in a position to receive. There's good and there's greatness in each and every one of you. All you have to do is unlock it.
All right. Well, we are looking forward to watching you all unlock the gifts that are on the inside of you. We want to see you walking around campus or walking around the world, wherever you're listening or watching from. We want to see you with your heads held up high, knowing who you are and walking in your greatness and making sure that you are honoring yourself. Don't forget, you have a responsibility to take control of your self care and your self love journey. This is this is Chef Talk that you have been watching. We're looking forward to seeing you on the next episode as we continue our Wellness Fest discussion. I'm Daniela Smallway, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Bye.